Do you have any advice for me on that, or just?
I do. So I have a couple follow-up questions. You mentioned that you went through a very similar experience that I did 11 years ago when my husband's business was starting to go under and was taking our entire life down the drain with it. The financial pressure was mind-numbing, and just getting out of bed was literally like climbing Mount Everest. Is the issue behind you, or are you in the middle of it?
We're in the middle of it.
Okay, so this is very important.
I want to teach you the 5 signs that your relationship is over. Recognizing these signs is critical, even though it might be hard for you to accept it. Now, the fact that you're even watching this video tells me that you're already thinking that this relationship isn't going to last. And even if that isn't necessarily true, those thoughts that you're having that make you second guess yourself and start acting weird and clingy, those will destroy a good relationship. You have a choice to make right now. You either address the 5 things I'm about to talk about in this video, or face the truth and end the relationship yourself because it's over. So what are the 5 signs? Sign number 1, you don't feel like yourself. In this relationship, you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You don't know how to act when you're in public or when you're around their friends. You aren't sure if you should hold hands. You're uncomfortable talking about your feelings because you don't know if they're on the same page. All of these things mean you don't feel comfortable being you. And any relationship where you have to twist yourself into somebody that you're not in order to keep the peace, it only starts a war inside of you. And those kind of relationships, they always blow up. The second sign, you're constantly questioning how you should communicate. If you're nervous about sending a text asking if they want to hang out, or do you obsess over whether they opened your Snap but they haven't responded, or how long it's been since they texted you back? Do they watch your Instagram story but not respond to your text messages? Are you compulsively checking social media to try to get the clues you need that it's okay to reach out? Any relationship where you spend more time questioning rather than talking about communication is a relationship that's broken. Sign number 3, you think about where the relationship stands all the time. So do you constantly think about questions like, where's this going? Are we exclusive? Are we committed? Can I introduce you to my family and take you to a work event? How should I introduce you? What are you thinking? What do you say about me? Not knowing where you stand means this relationship doesn't stand a chance. Sign number 4, you're starting to get annoyed. You're now the one opening snaps and not responding. You're saying you're too busy to hang out in order to send a message. You're hesitant to commit to future plans because you don't know the future of this relationship. You snap at them more than usual. All those cute little things that used to make you laugh, they're really annoying. And here's the kiss of death. If their name pops up on your phone or they walk through the door at the end of the day and you feel dread and not excitement, that's a sign that you're over this person. And the 5th and final sign, you're questioning whether or not you have the same values. If you're starting to feel like you're losing yourself, for example, maybe you're drinking more than you'd like. You're spending less time with your friends. You're skipping the gym. You're only doing things, for example, like listening to certain types of music because it interests them. This is a major problem. If there isn't a balance between the two of you, you will always feel like a less important part of the relationship because you are. Now, here's a quick test to see if you're losing yourself. Just go out alone tonight with your friends, and if it feels like a relief because you can finally act like yourself, that's a sign that this is not a relationship for you. I bet what you're doing is you're confusing chemistry for compatibility. You see, chemistry is like a match that gets lit, but eventually it burns out. Compatibility means you and your partner bring out the best in you, which is why it goes the distance. We just got a great question from Claire about the holidays and dealing with your family and drawing boundaries. Okay, you ready? Listen up, because we could all use this particular advice. The holidays are here, Mel, and even though it's a time I should be feeling cheerful and festive, I'm full of anxiety over spending time with my toxic family. Every year it's the same thing. Inappropriate comments, questions that totally deplete me, and it makes me wonder if this is even my family. Can you please help? Signed, Claire. Claire, you shouldn't feel alone because so many people have anxiety about toxic relationships related to their families and how they have to confront them during the holidays. So here's the thing I want you to think about when it comes to the holidays. Holidays can be one of two things when you have toxic relationships with your family. It can either be a personal challenge or it can be a chance to have a personal transformation. And the personal transformation that I'm talking about is not changing your mother or your annoying older brother or your racist aunt. I'm talking about whether or not you have a personal transformation, because you can't fully get rid of toxic situations or toxic people, but you can transform how you behave when you're around those kinds of people. So the holidays can be a chance for you to practice boundaries, practice self-control, to be emotionally resilient and strong and not get triggered, and to also have the courage to express the new you, to express your true self. So if you left home a long time ago, you've grown as a person, you've changed, you've evolved, and then every time you go back home, you feel like you've stepped into a time warp and you're suddenly 8 years old again. This is a chance to transform yourself so that when you walk in the door, you are who you are now, not who you used to be when you still lived at home. And so there's a couple things that I want you to think about before you go home, before you have the interaction, so that you are prepared emotionally to make this a transformation for yourself personally. Number one, don't assume the old role that you used to play. So just because you're in your childhood home or you're with people that you know from your childhood, do not make the mistake of falling back into old patterns. Don't suddenly start acting like the youngest one again. If you're the youngest in your family, if you're always been dad's favorite and everybody hates that, stop playing into it. So there are things that we do that we don't even realize when we step into our childhood homes or around the people that we grew up with, where we slip right back into old patterns. Make sure you know what those are so that you have them in check for yourself. Number two, this is a huge one. Don't take the bait. This was advice that I got from my brother a long time ago. Don't take the bait. You know that there are relatives and friends from your past that just love to cast the guilt. They just love to cause issues. They're constantly casting like a fisherman, all kinds of things out there. And if you're the kind of person like I used to be, when somebody gets upset, you grab the bait and then you start trying to make it okay. And the next thing you know, you're arguing with somebody over something really stupid. Just don't take it. Don't let yourself get triggered. If somebody's casting the guilt, let them cast. Don't hit that lure. You know what I'm saying? They're welcome to say whatever they want to say. If you don't react, there's no issue. You don't have to worry about making sure that your mom or your dad doesn't say that stuff. Just don't react to it. And you'll be shocked at how the dynamic changes. You know, this is another piece of advice that my friend Danielle gave me today, and it comes from the Calm app. You can also, before you go into the situation, visualize the really busy road. Now, in a very busy road, there are people that are passengers in those cars, and there are people that are pedestrians on the sidewalk who are watching the cars go by. I want you to think about the dynamic in your family as cars zipping down the highway, right? Everybody's got all kinds of issues and conversations and kids and this and that, and people want attention, and there's all kinds of things racing by. Your role when you're around your family is to be a pedestrian on the sidewalk, watching it all go by. This is another form of not taking the bait. The last thing you want to do when your mom pulls the guilt train up is to climb on board and be a passenger on that ride, okay? You know what I'm saying? You're going to stay on the sidewalk. You're not going to take the bait. You're just going to watch the traffic as it speeds and whips by. Don't climb in when the guilt car pulls up, okay? Next thing, this has also been a major thing for me, empathy. Empathy is a superpower. My relationship with my mom changed dramatically for the better when I stopped judging her and I started thinking about what she must be feeling. Seriously, like if you've got somebody in your life that's angry, that says hurtful things, that's disappointed or upset, all of those things, anger, pain, disappointment, it's all just a mask for hurt. So any kind of toxic behavior that you're seeing in other people, unless it's some sort of narcissism personality disorder, for most normal human beings, if they're exhibiting bad behavior, it's literally just unexpressed hurt. That's all that it is. And a healthy dose of empathy, like thinking about how hard it was in the household where your parents grew up, or thinking about all the struggles that maybe one of your siblings who's really annoying because they take up all the energy, how many struggles they've faced, or thinking about how lonely your aunt is because your uncle's died. Thinking from a point of view that's empathetic, it's amazing. It's very personally transforming because it helps you set boundaries. It helps you not get triggered. It helps you to be more emotionally mature and resilient. And it will help you make these holidays an opportunity for personal transformation instead of a massive personal challenge. I really, really hope that that helps you have a much happier holiday season. Why don't you just tell me a little bit about the issue that you're dealing with?
So my girlfriend and I have been dating for like a little over 2 years. I have the biggest communication problem in our relationship. She's very expressive and she wants to know how I feel about things and what I'm thinking. And I internalize a lot of things. I don't want to communicate. You know, growing up, that really wasn't something that was taught. Like everyone that I have seen growing up, my family, everyone just shuts down. Then a few days or weeks or even months go by, and then it's like, okay, just move on and act like nothing ever happened. So.
And what is her reaction when you withdraw? When you withdraw, do you just get silent or do you leave the room? What's your mode of withdrawing?
I just want to go out for a walk or something or lay in bed, and I don't even want to talk. And she wants to try and work things out and like, let's talk about this. What's bothering you? I internalize a lot of things. And so she'll say something and I immediately jump to the conclusion that she doesn't love me anymore or this isn't going to work.
This question is so relevant for so many couples, and I'm so proud of you for sharing it. The first thing I want to do is I want to acknowledge you because you zeroed in on the reason why you do this. Every single one of us learned how to communicate positively or negatively based on what we saw growing up. And it takes hold in us before you even realize. Most of this patterning is what I'm going to call it, that you have absorbed. You absorbed by the age of 5. So if what you saw in your household is that the moment there was conflict, people shut down, this is a pattern. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a pattern. This is just how your parents and your caregivers dealt with the stress and conflict in their life. They avoided it. And so it's no surprise that you now are an adult feeling stuck. And the reason why you feel stuck is because you are stuck in a pattern. The great thing about patterns is once you recognize that you have one and you can identify it and you can identify the situations where this pattern takes over like that, and suddenly next thing you know, you're sleeping in your bed instead of talking to your girlfriend. Given that you saw this growing up, what happens now that you're an adult, now that you've seen this, and this is what was modeled for you, is that whenever you're in a situation where you start to feel, uh-oh, my girlfriend's getting upset with me, uh-oh, she wants to talk, uh-oh, we just bickered about something. Before you even think, I got to talk, your nervous system remembers what it was like to be a kid in a household when your parents were about to argue with each other or when your parents got upset with each other. And what you witnessed was separation. So before you even think, what happens is your nervous system goes, oh, wait a minute, I recognize this. This is a moment of conflict. I know what to do. I leave when this happens because that's what I saw. It happens before you even think about it. So let me give you some advice for a couple things that you can do. I think the two of you should work together to come up with a sentence that you say when you are arguing. And maybe it is something like, I am not going to leave you. I am standing right here. I am not going anywhere. And we need to talk about this. And you need to stand here with me. What you need is just that reassurance up front. I love you. This is why I'm telling you why I'm upset. Let's work through it. Maybe you need that as a safe word, so to speak, to cue you that this is a moment to stay. The second thing that I want you to do is I want you to always use the I statements.
So when we get into arguments with the people that we love, or with anybody for that matter, and we start going, well, you do this, and then you raise your voice, and then you do this thing, and da. You always, always, always want to use I feel. And so when you're arguing, I know it's uncomfortable for you to talk about your feelings. You can say, I am scared to say this because I'm scared you're going to leave. I'm scared to say this because my mom and stepdad never talked about anything. So this is new for me. You can always talk about what's going on for you. And so for you to always anchor in choosing what you're feeling and choosing to say it out loud, it's a way for you to live even more openly and more fully and be more connected to her. The final thing I want to give you is that if this is a really intense argument about something, and you really do need a second to cool down, the only way that it is, I think, respectful to yourself and to your partner, if you need to go do something and remove yourself, is to say, I need 30 minutes. You put a timeline on it. And then you say, and then I promise I will come back and I will resolve this with you.
I think those are very useful. I think I can definitely implement those in my life and see how that's going to change things, my relationship with her,
The one thing I know in talking to you, you're going to be okay. And you are going to have a life full of love because you're doing the really hard work right now of learning how to love yourself. Every time you choose to stand in that moment that's terrifying, and you choose yourself and you choose to express what you're feeling and you choose to stand there and love yourself enough, you get stronger and stronger and stronger.
I found you during a time in my life where I was going through something very similar, that when you started the 54321 financially, my husband's business, I really went on this huge spiritual journey. And what I'm finding that I'm not really sure how to handle is my husband's not on it with me. And so what's happening is there's this massive disconnect between us. He's very, he's almost becoming angry about it, like enough already. And I'm also then starting to blame when I don't see the shifts that I'm manifesting and working on. And I'm thinking to myself, well, he's negating it and it's not shifting and the business isn't shifting because he's not on board with it with me. So do you have any advice for me on that, or just?
I do. So I have a couple follow-up questions.
Okay.
You mentioned that you went through a very similar experience that I did 11 years ago when my husband's business was starting to go under and was taking our entire life down the drain with it. The financial pressure was mind-numbing, and just getting out of bed was literally like climbing Mount Everest. Is the issue behind you, or are you in the middle of it?
We're in the middle of it.
Okay, so this is very important because I made a major mistake with Chris. And that is, I did not understand what it does to a man's psyche when he is not successful, and more dangerous when something he's doing is failing and failing publicly. And I had a lot of anger out of financial fear, and I'm talking very generally about standard gender norms.
Right.
So for a guy, the pressure to be a man is about providing, it's about money in the bank, it's about all of the stuff wrapped around success. We feel the same pressure from society around how we look, about our age, about how thin we are, and the pressure is the exact same. Because what happens is when you're not successful as a guy, you not only feel the fear that you're feeling, you feel shame, you feel embarrassment, you feel like a loser, you feel like the world's worst husband. So you gotta understand that, because he's already trashing himself more than you ever will. And then what happens though is when you add on to that any kind of criticism, any kind of opinion, any kind of anything but encouragement, it craters them even more. And so Chris and I got into this mode where he was shutting down, he was snapping, he was angry, we were both drinking way too much. And luckily, a bunch of stuff started to happen, and just like you, as I was changing, it was not on the same timeline that he was changing. And so any of my optimism, any of my enthusiasm, any of my success that was starting to happen only shined a light on everything that was lacking. And so what your husband needs, I don't know if he deserves it or not, but I'm going to tell you what he needs. I'm going to assume he deserves it because he's probably working really hard and he's probably beating himself up, is he needs encouragement. He doesn't need coaching from you. That'll destroy your marriage. He needs encouragement and validation. And the other thing that I noticed, and this is what's going to come next, because if your career starts to take off because you're doing all this personal development and your mindset's on fire and you're super expansive, which is super annoying, by the way, to somebody who's down low, you're going to get what's called breadwinner resentment rage, which as the roles flip in your marriage, you're going to start to get pissed off that you're the one doing everything and that you're bringing money in. And you're also doing most of the chores at home. And why aren't you stepping up when I'm going over here? Which, by the way, makes him feel like this too. So what do you do about it? I think the most important thing is you guys gotta have a conversation, like one for real, about where he's at and what he's feeling. And ask him, what does he need for support? Because we only guess. And, I can tell you one other story. When we got the news about the talk show, not going to season 2, I, of course, was in like an emotional roller coaster for a good week or so. And every day I would come home because my way of dealing with stuff is to try to fix it. And so every day I would come home and I'd be like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go raise money and I'm going to buy the show back myself. And then I'm going to call the syndicator and I'm going to do it myself. And then Chris, being analytical, would go, so who exactly are you going to call? And he's not questioning, he's just curious. And then the second day I would come home and I'd be like, I have an idea. I'm going to go straight to all the advertisers that integrated with the show and I'm going to pitch them on a dish or what the fuck. And he'd be like, oh, so who's on the top of the list? He's just having a conversation. And then the third day I come home and I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start doing online courses again. Oh, so you're going to use Kajabi as a back? And I'm like, will you stop asking me questions? And he looked at me and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to help. And I said, let me tell you what I need. Until I'm sane, whenever I come home with an idea, just say these words. That's a great idea. Because I just need validation right now. That's all that I need. And so I think you should ask him, what can you do to support him? If you see him doing things to try to change what's going on, validate that and understand he's already beating himself up. And your job, if you want to help him resurrect the business, if you want this to bring you together, you gotta be the one that's lifting him up through this because he can't do that for himself.
What's the key to staying connected when you're in a long-distance relationship and you don't get to see your partner? Well, first of all, I think John O'Leary and Mel Robbins, we are the two best equipped people to answer this question. How long have you been married?
We've been married 15 years.
We've been married 22 years. And John has how many kids?
We have 4 children.
I have 3 children. And we are also on the road at least half the year.
That's about that.
Yeah. So I guess my secret is I text my husband all day long. I send him photos from the road. I feel more connected to my kids sometimes when I'm traveling because they miss me and they accept my FaceTime calls. And when I'm home, I notice that they're like, can I have some money in the car keys? I gotta go. And then when I try to FaceTime them or something, they're not. So I have longer conversations with them over FaceTime. But all kidding aside, I visually take them along with me. by taking photos and texting it. We have a family group chat that I'm constantly texting in with them. We Snapchat a lot with the kids.
Awesome.
I don't know. I know. I spend a lot of time acknowledging what Chris is doing because it blows to be the partner at home.
Much harder job.
Much harder job. And when you're traveling, you're distracted and going out to eat and bumping into fun people. When you're home, you're still doing the laundry and the kid shuffle and walking the dog. And so you can feel unappreciated.
Mel got a standing ovation today.
So did you.
Chris is at home cleaning up vomit right now.
Yeah.
Dog poop from the living room. It's a
Probably.
hard job.
Yeah. So what do you do? What are your tricks to stay connected?
Technology, of course. So that's a wonderful way to do it. The best way I would suggest is when I'm home, like you can't call me. Work can't get me. I'm with her only. So for me, it's not about balance. It's about flow. But when I'm home, I'm completely engaged as a husband and as a dad and as a leader in life, I hope. And that's one piece. The second is this. A couple years ago, we were struggling a little bit in our marriage. Not bad, but enough. And so I committed on January 1 to make a list of everything that Beth was doing right. Because I was finding myself making a list of things she was doing wrong. And this was a secret. So this is she just received this. But on January 1, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, for 360 days without her knowing it. And then on Christmas morning, she's opening up all the gifts, and I never give her good gifts. I give her like hot red dresses that she can wear on Valentine's Day. It's brutal. I never give her a good gift, but I gave her this old rusted out leather journal. And she opens it up January 1, January 2. There's a receipt from our dinner together, a couple trips that we took together.
I am stealing this idea.
It was awesome, not only for her to receive it, but all year long. I was falling in love with what she was doing right rather than what she was doing wrong. And so I still do this now, 3 years in. It's just an awesome thing that helps me remind myself how awesome my wife is.
That is incredible. Your answer is way better than mine, and I'm stealing this idea.
Go for it. You'll love it.
I love it.
Awesome.
Love it. Every single woman that's watching this just collectively went, my husband is a jerk.
He is a jerk. Make him do better.
John is the winner.
So for the ladies, we might be jerks too, because maybe we can also acknowledge how great the Chris's and the Steves, the Roys are in the marketplace. What you focus on grows. So focus on the good and it's going to start magnifying.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. Oh, I love that. Yes. That's just not for heterosexual couples too, by the way. That works for any couple of any shape, size, kind, whatever. Yes, because we all want the same thing. We just want to feel like we matter and somebody notices.
That's a fact.
Oh my God, I'm stealing it. So Megan writes, I'm on a path fulfilling my dream of owning a business. Met a guy. I've fallen for him. But he's in a rut emotionally and career-wise. What do you do when your head says, go for someone who will not drain you from your path, yet your heart says, support him for the potential of what it could be? Megan, I'm going to tell you to run for the hills, girl, and let me tell you why. First of all, based on your question, this does not sound like a relationship that is long-term. This sounds like somebody that you've met recently while you're starting a business. If this had been a long-term relationship, you've been with this guy for 2 or 3 years, and then he hits a rough patch, I think it's important to learn how to see people through those rough patches. Stay with him for an extra 6 months. Support him. If he can't pull himself out of the rut, it's probably time for you to move on if it's draining you emotionally. But that's not the situation that you're in. You're in a situation where you've just met someone, you've fallen for him, and he's in a rut as you've met him. Here's the thing about relationships. The relationships that work are the ones where the people that are in them are both ready. It's like both of you have a light on inside of you, signaling you that you're ready to be in a relationship. And, honestly, it's clear that you're ready to be in a relationship, and that's probably why you fell for him, because he needs you. But you got to remember something. Relationships are a give and a take, not just a give. And so, in my opinion, based on what you said, you're emotionally ready to give and to take. He isn't ready to give you anything. And that's why you need to move on. It is so important for you to realize that the kind of person that you want to be in a relationship with is somebody that can actually give something back to you as well. Got a great question about dealing with relationships, friendships, where you have a close friend who's a real downer and they've got all kinds of issues and they are draining the you-know-what out of your energy. It happens all the time. I'm going to say a couple things about this. I have something that I call the 6-month rule. For the people in your life, your friends, your family. People are going to go through ups and downs. And I think it's super, super, super important that you be there for people, that you listen to the things that they're struggling with, that you give advice, that you help them find resources. You must do that. That's just part of being an incredible friend. However, when the issue sticks around so long that your friendship spirals into a situation where that friendship is nothing more than you listening to somebody complain, and now it's zapping your energy, now it's time for you to change how you're behaving in the friendship. So this is why I call it the 6-month rule. For 6 months, absolutely listen to somebody. Give them all the advice, be the shoulder they cry on, let them bitch and kvetch and all that stuff to you all day long. But if after 6 months your friend is still complaining and doing nothing, and is still complaining and acting helpless, is still stuck in that rut and refusing to take your advice, it's really important that you draw some boundaries. And it's important for you, it's also important for your friend. So here's what you're gonna do. You're basically just gonna say, look, I love you. I know you're going through a hard time, but I will no longer listen to you complain about it. And the reason why is because it's not helping you, and it's really starting to make me sad that you're still this stuck and you're not taking action. Let's definitely hang out. Let's spend a lot of time together, but we're not allowed to talk about this anymore. The second you start taking action to fix the situation, we can talk about it again. And you know that I'm here for you, but I'm not here for you so that you can stay stuck. I'm here for you so that you can get better, so that you can grow. Now, I had a friend about a decade ago who was in a situation where she had just been broken up with. I think she was struggling with an eating disorder because she was getting scary thin. And for 6 months straight, she would complain about her body, complain about how depressed she was, but she refused to see a therapist. She refused to seek counseling. She refused to read the books that I gave her. And I finally said to her, I'm really, really worried about you because this situation is scaring me and you're not doing anything. And so we're no longer allowed to talk about this unless you're going to go get some professional help or you're going to start taking some small steps to get healthy again. She stopped talking to me, completely stopped talking to me. Do you know, she reached out to me in Facebook, like 2 years ago, and told me that that was one of the most confronting conversations, and it actually was the wake-up call that she needed. And right after the conversation where I said, you're scaring me and we're not going to talk about this anymore unless you start to take steps, her mother had a very similar conversation and she started to get the help that she needed. So you never know what a difference it's going to make in the person's life when you're willing to be that honest. You also need to be doing that for your own sanity and your own well-being. So 6-month rule, when friends are depressed, when friends are stuck, when friends are going through a really tough time, absolutely positively be there. Let them cry, let them complain, let them suck the energy out of everything because they need you. Provide all the help and resources you can. And then after 6 months, if this is starting to drain you and if they're doing absolutely nothing to get better, that's when you draw the line.
Envy is one of the most toxic emotions that you can feel. And I know this better than most because I used to be so envious of people when I was younger. I could find any reason to be envious. And envy is different than jealousy because envy is when you not only want what the other person has, but there's a part of you that feels like they don't deserve it. That when you see a friend getting ahead or making more money, or they've got a new handbag, or they've got a better car or a bigger house, or they're going on a fancy trip, that you start to feel this toxic emotion called envy. And I'm telling you that if you're somebody who struggles because you feel envious of other people in your life, you have got to get a hold on this because it will corrode you. And the reason why envy is so toxic is because of the edge to it. I've made a lot of videos about the power of jealousy, not jealousy in a relationship, but jealousy of looking around and seeing people that are out there doing things that you're jealous of and using jealousy as a signal to pull you forward. Envy corrodes you. Envy makes you stuck. And the reason why envy is so dangerous is because there's an undercurrent to it that none of us talk about. And this is what it is. When you're envious of somebody else, deep in your heart, you have a belief that because that person got that handbag, or they got that promotion, or they got to go on that trip, that somehow their success, their good fortune, it's robbing you of yours. that there's only so much happiness, there's only so much money, so many trips in the world to go around. And if you see somebody that's doing something that you want, they just took it away from you. So this is why envy becomes so dangerous to you. Because if you live your life believing there's only so much in the world to go around, you are living your life in conflict with the fundamental laws of the way that the world works. When you think about abundance, when you think about possibility, when you think about dreams and success, those are infinite. Abundance means that it is there for the taking for everybody. That there's no limit to the amount of happiness or kitchen renovations or designer jeans or promotions that can go around. And when you allow yourself to live in a state where you're envious of other people, you are living your life believing that there's only so much happiness. And somebody else getting to be happy, somebody else getting to get engaged, somebody else getting to launch that business somehow robs you of yours because there's not enough to go around. You have got to change it. You have got to first and fundamentally believe that there is success, happiness, money, riches, possibility for everybody. There's enough for everybody. That nobody's in competition with you. And that in fact, when you see somebody that has something that you desire, you should be happy. You want to know why? You should be happy because it's a sign that it's possible. It's a sign that it's coming to you. It's a sign that you're on your way. If you allow envy to creep in, you have now aligned your life with the belief that there's not enough to go around. You need to stop that right now. So bottom line, envy, knock it off. It will never help you get what you want. In fact, it's going to keep you stuck and miserable. So do the work to catch yourself when you're feeling envious and remind yourself that if you want abundance in your life, you better start believing that there's enough for everybody to go around, and you better start learning how to be happy for other people. Stressful conversations are unavoidable in life. And in business, they can run the gamut from having to fire somebody, which is like the most gut-wrenching thing you will ever have to do, or admitting failure, that you really blew it. Or another thing that you might have to do is deal with a customer who's really upset.
How about a smoothie? What's in that?
Smoothie's a juice drink. We want coffee.
And I think it's very natural to want to avoid those conversations like the plague. But especially in business, there's an epidemic right now of people that are unwilling to have uncomfortable conversations. Harvard Business School just did a study and they found that 67% of managers are uncomfortable talking to the people they manage. And this gets me to what I want to talk to you today. It is the secret to how to have a difficult conversation. Because what's critical is learning the skill of untangling your emotions from the subject matter and being able to go face to face with anybody and have that difficult conversation. There are 4 techniques that I use whenever I'm going to have a difficult conversation that help me stay focused on what I need to talk about instead of getting hijacked by my emotions. Number 1, I always start the conversation by acknowledging my responsibility in the mess that we have to talk about. Whether it's the fact that I've avoided dealing with this sooner or whether there's something that I've done that's contributed to the situation, I acknowledge it right up front. And one of the reasons why that's so important is because by accepting some responsibility, you're diffusing the other person's emotion. You're also honoring them a little bit, and it sets a much more level playing field for when you get into the difficult things that you need to talk about. It's also going to put the person that you're speaking to a little at ease, so they're going to be able to listen. Number 2, you want to have a goal. Never go into a difficult conversation without an outcome defined before you go into it. The reason why the outcome is so important is because this conversation is going to be a roller coaster. The person that you're talking to might get upset. You yourself might feel emotional at some point, whether you're angry or you're triggered or you get sad. And so when you ride the roller coaster of emotion, the thing that is going to stabilize your thoughts is the outcome that you're causing. You're having this conversation because you're committed to making the relationship better. You're having this conversation because this isn't working, and so we need to end it powerfully. You're having this conversation because you want to give somebody some feedback that's not so fun to tell them, but you're giving it to them because you're committed to their success. Okay? So that goal, you feel yourself getting emotional, you come back to it. You come back to it. You come back to it. Third thing you're going to do a lot in this conversation, you're going to listen and you're going to validate. So you're going to say what you need to say, and then the other person's going to react. And instead of arguing or debating, I want you to listen and I want you to validate what the person is saying. It may sound counterintuitive, but honestly, one of the most powerful things you can do in any conversation, whether you're fighting with your kids over curfew, or you're arguing with somebody at work over workloads, whatever it may be, is hear where the person's at.
Listen to me, listen to me.
The moment you say, wow, that must be really tough, what you're dealing with, or, oh, I totally get why you now were avoiding me. If I felt the way that you felt, I'd probably do the same thing. The second you validate somebody, they immediately stop defending themselves. It's unbelievable, actually. Unbelievable. You got to try it. Validate, validate, validate. It is the most powerful thing. And then once, of course, they feel validated that you've heard them, now they can listen. And that's when you come back to the final thing, which is you're going to restate always the outcome. Keep coming back to it. Keep coming back to it. And yeah, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have all kinds of emotions come up because you've been avoiding this conversation. But I'm telling you right now, if you find the confidence and the courage to go and to start this thing, acknowledge your responsibility, have an outcome in mind, validate the other person, validate, 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 and keep talking till you hit that outcome, you're going to be really, really amazed at how much easier these things become. And if you want to make it even easier on yourself, rehearse it with another friend first, somebody that's not involved in the situation. Because again, difficult conversations comes down to one important thing: the ability for you to separate your emotion about doing it from the things you actually need to talk about and the outcome that you want to cause. So I know I've already spoken to you about the power of appreciation and my philosophy of being a fan, but it's so important and it works like magic. So I really want to hammer this point home. And I also want to show you the power of using video when you express your appreciation for something. So let me tell you a story. You know, as you know, I'm one of the most booked speakers in the world. I'm traveling all of the time. And 9 times out of 10, our 11-year-old son, Oakley, really doesn't care where I am. He only wants to know how many sleeps before you get home and are you bringing me anything? A couple months ago, I was giving a speech in Orlando, and it happened to be for Microsoft. And I was really excited to be giving the speech. And I was also excited because I was going to be able to catch an earlier flight home. So I call my husband and I'm talking to Chris and I say something about, the earlier flight. And then he said, well, good luck with Microsoft. And in the background, I hear my son, our son, Oakley, go, Microsoft? Xbox Microsoft? Is mom speaking at Microsoft? And I'm like, am I on speaker, Chris? And he says, yeah. And I said, hey, Oak. I said, yeah, I'm speaking at Microsoft. And all of a sudden, he gets so amped. You can tell that he's run over to the phone and he's going, have you gone on stage yet? Oh my gosh, is this the Xbox people? And I said, no, this is just Microsoft, honey. It's just the marketing group and, whatever. And he's asking me all these questions rapid fire and he says, have you gone on stage? And I said, no. And he said, when are you going on stage? And I said, in 10 minutes. And he said, can I send you a video? And I said, of course you can send me a video. So I hang up with him and I'm standing backstage. And I'm standing with a bunch of executives from Microsoft, and we were having a great time. Super cool group of people, as you probably imagine they would be. And I'm talking to a bunch of people that I've just met, and all of a sudden, bing, my phone, look down at this as it's vibrating, and it's Oakley telling me that he's just sent me a video, pick up the video. I open up the video. My son has also told me that this video is for Microsoft, and I turn to the people around me who are some major senior people at Microsoft. And I say, well, my son just sent me a video, 5-second rule, right? My instincts say play it for him. Probably should have vetted it first, but I decided, hey, why not? I've got about 7 minutes before I'm supposed to go on stage. Let's play what Oakley sent to me. So I gather everybody around and I do exactly what Oakley says and I hit play. And this was the video he sent.
Hello, Microsoft, and I'm here to tell you why I love Xbox so much.
I think the quality of the games and how you guys make them is astounding, and they look beautiful. I love all the games that you made, and I love everything about them. And I just wanted to say thank you for making those games, because I am the biggest Minecraft fan, and I have done everything in Minecraft, and I love it, and I love that game, and I love how you guys took it over, and I love how you guys made so many fun games, and I think you guys are just the best company ever, and I just wanted to say that for you. So thank you so much for being a part of my life. My name is Oakley, and I'm here to say thank you. Peace out.
Now, the only thing that surprised me about that video is the fact that he didn't say, and you can send the DVDs and, our address. Well, I was laughing really hard, and I had just met this guy, Jeremy, before I hit play. Little did I know that Jeremy was the head of global sales for Xbox. So he turns to me and says, put the camera on me, I have a message for Oakley. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to. Pay attention to the end of the video. Because Jeremy is a really smart guy, and clearly he understands the law of reciprocity, and he also understands the power of appreciation. Check this out.
Hello, Oakley. I'm just here because I want to say thank you to you for being part of our lives, buying all the Minecraft games and being such a raving fan. And so thank you for being part of our community and for being an Xbox fan and for following Microsoft. And so what we want to say is, my name's Jeremy. I look after all the sales for Xbox around the world. And so what we would like to do for you is we want you to come with your mom to Seattle and come round and look at the Xbox studios, and we'll show you how we make some games, and we'll show you some of the new cool stuff we're working on. And we'd like you to have a fabulous experience where you can then go out and advocate for Xbox to all your friends and all your community. So we're here to say thanks to you, mate. Really love the video. Take care.
I mean, how cool is that? And you know what else is cool is that it's also going to give Oakley, our son, who is dyslexic, he's a gamer, he's not into sports, the chance to actually see the behind the scenes of an industry that he's really interested in. So I'm super fired up to go on the tour. But more importantly, I was showing you this for a different reason. And that is that there is so much power in expressing your appreciation. And imagine the difference if Oakley had just said, tell Microsoft I'm a fan. If I had just said, oh, by the way, my son's really into Xbox and Minecraft. Everybody would have been like, oh, that's great, thanks a lot. What this mentoring session demonstrates is the power of video and the lasting impact that video has when you're expressing appreciation. So today, what I want you to do is I want you to take 10 seconds. That's all it takes. Take your phone, turn it around, take a video of yourself and cheer for somebody. Express appreciation. Tell somebody you love them, you miss them, you were just thinking about it, and then hit send. You will be startled by just how big of an impact it's going to have. The barrier is everybody gives a shit what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
And so they're on camera or they're on a microphone trying to be smart or concerned about whether or not they look good in the shot, concerned about how they sound, whether or not they stuttered, if their neck is turning red, like whatever it may be. And they're so up here that they're not actually being true to just saying what's right here.
Absolutely.
Whether you're speaking from the heart, speaking from the gut, like that is the skill to develop, is the ability to be more like an 11-year-old that gets on camera and can just be themselves instead of being a 49-year-old person censoring themselves.
Got it.
And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the truth, when I talk about authenticity, that people really want to feel that connection. And the only way that they're going to feel that connection is if you do the work to remove the own veneer and the own barriers that you put in between you and other people. And the number one thing is everybody gives too much of a shit about what everybody else thinks.
Absolutely.
And you know who they think they're worried the most about? Their friends.
Yeah.
If I put this thing up, not for my friends, but for the people that I'm trying to build a rapport with online, my friends are going to judge me. Your friends. Seriously. If you're out to make a difference, if you're out to share something that is important to you, if your friends don't like it or don't support you, they're really not your friends.
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, no, definitely makes total sense.
And it's a really hard lesson. It's a very hard lesson because everybody's always judging everybody else. That's why you can't worry about it.
Do you have like recommendations for how people just get started, like from moving from that, like to basically move from their mindset of I care too much to I don't care as much? Like, are there steps that you recommend people take?
The only step that really works is action.
Okay.
Because if you're stopping to think about what people are thinking or whether or not you're worried about what people are thinking, you've already fallen into the trap.
Okay.
The second that you push yourself to get started through the action itself, you are proving to yourself that even though you care what everybody thinks, you're gonna do it anyway.
Okay.
And so that's why I talk about the 5-second rule. The 5-second rule is how you interrupt the excuses, the patterns, the concerns, and the fears that you have, whether it's perfectionism, whether it's disappointing your parents, whether it's being judged by your friends, whether it's looking stupid when you post something, whether it's screwing up and saying something that a bunch of trolls come after you for, right? All those things that everybody's concerned about, that can stop you forever. If you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you break the part of the brain where all of those trappings are, and you awaken your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that you're using when you're creating content, when you're speaking with courage, when you're learning something new. And so that's why this simple brain trick that I invented is exploding around the world, because every last one of us is exactly the same. Exactly the same. You and I, we want the same thing. We want to actually live a life where we get to express ourselves at the highest level. We're all want the same thing, and we're all stopping ourselves the same way, by thinking too much, by buying into the lies that self-doubt tells you. And so I'm here to tell you, you can cut that off at the knees. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can make a 5-second decision. The second you feel that doubt, the second you feel that concern, the second you feel that fear, and you can literally feel it and actually move anyway.
So thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.